David lifted his champagne glass, looked straight at Eliza in front of half the wedding crowd, and smiled like he was about to be generous. Instead, he said, "I honestly didn't think you'd come." The laughter around them thinned. A few guests turned. Lauren froze beside him, her smile locked in place. Eliza stood near the edge of the reception with a gift bag in one hand, and every eye suddenly burning into her skin. David took one slow step closer. "But since you did," he went on, voice smooth and sharp at the same time, "let's not make this awkward. Tonight is about moving forward. I'd appreciate it if you didn't turn it into some sad little scene." The words hit harder than a slap. Someone near the bar looked away. Someone else whispered. Eliza felt her throat close. She had spent 3 months preparing for pain. She had not prepared for public humiliation. Then a deep voice cut through the silence behind her. "If you wanted dignity at your wedding," the man said, "you should have started with your own behavior." Eliza turned. A tall man in a black suit was walking toward them through the crowd, calm as fire before it spreads, and when David saw who it was, the color left his face. What was his brother doing here? Eliza had imagined this night in 100 different ways. In none of them did David embarrass her in front of his guests like she was some unstable woman who had wandered in from the street. In none of them did his older brother step out of the crowd and look at David like he was the one who should be ashamed. The reception had gone silent in that dangerous way rich gatherings sometimes did. Nobody wanted to be caught watching. Nobody wanted to be caught not watching either. The stranger stopped beside Eliza, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, his jaw rough with evening stubble, but it was his eyes that held her. Gray, steady, not curious, not amused, angry, not at her. "At least try to act like a groom and not a coward," he said to David. David's polished smile cracked. "Alex, stay out of this." So this was Alex. Eliza had heard the name only a few times in the years she dated David. Always briefly. Always with that clipped tone families used when speaking about the one member who refused to behave correctly. The difficult brother. The disappointment. The one who had stepped off the approved path and never returned. Lauren found her voice first. "Maybe this isn't the time." Alex did not even look at her. That would have been useful advice 30 seconds ago. Eliza should have left. She knew that. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her to walk away, get in her car, go home, cry in private, and never speak to any of these people again. But something in David's face stopped her. He looked annoyed, not sorry, protective of his image, not ashamed of what he had done. And suddenly, leaving felt too much like surrender. David let out a slow breath through his nose. "Eliza, I didn't mean it the way it sounded." Alex gave a short laugh with no warmth in it. "That line must work well for you. You've clearly had practice." A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone set down a glass too hard. The band had stopped playing altogether. David's eyes hardened. "You don't know anything about this." "No," Alex said. "I know exactly what this looks like. A man humiliating a woman because it's easier than feeling guilty." That did it. David stepped forward, not enough to make a scene if anyone later retold it kindly, but enough to make the hostility clear. "You show up late, you disappear for years, and now you want to lecture me at my own wedding?" Alex's voice stayed level. "You being dressed for a ceremony doesn't make you right." Eliza could feel every pair of eyes moving between the brothers. This was bigger than her now. Old anger, old damage. The kind that had been waiting years for a public excuse. Lauren touched David's arm. "Please." He shook her off gently but quickly, still staring at Alex. "This has nothing to do with you." Alex finally turned his head and looked at Eliza. It was such a small thing. One glance, one silent question. "Are you all right?" No one had asked her that all evening. Not Lauren, who used to be her best friend before becoming the bride. Not the guests who kept offering bright, brittle smiles. Not David, who had invited her and then punished her for showing up. Eliza swallowed hard. "I was actually about to leave." David nodded too fast. "That's probably best." Alex looked back at him. "Of course that's what you want." "Eliza, David's tone changed, softer now, more careful, more public. I'm trying to avoid making this harder for you. That almost made her laugh, harder for her, as if he had not left her for the woman standing beside him, as if he had not spent months acting like betrayal could be made respectable if everyone wore formal clothes and used the right tone of voice. Eliza straightened her spine. Her hand was still wrapped around the stem of her wine glass so tightly her fingers ached. "No," she said quietly. "You're trying to avoid discomfort for yourself." The sentence landed harder than she expected. David blinked. Lauren looked down. Somewhere behind them, someone whispered, "Oh God." Quote. Eliza felt her pulse hammering, but now the fear was changing shape. It was still there, but anger had finally caught up with it. She took one step forward. "You invited me," she said, her voice stronger now. "You told me it would mean a lot if I came because you wanted closure and maturity and peace. So I came. I stood here. I smiled. I tried to survive this with some dignity. And then you looked at me in front of your guests and made me sound like an embarrassment." "Eliza." "No." She cut him off before he could shape the moment into something cleaner. "You do not get to wound me and then act like you're managing the damage kindly." David's jaw flexed. He hated public loss of control. She used to know that look better than her own reflection. It was the face he made when a waiter corrected him, when a coworker questioned him, when reality refused to obey. "I said I didn't mean it like that." "And yet," Alex said, "you said it." For one wild second, Eliza wanted to cry. For another, she wanted to throw the wine in David's face. Instead, she put the glass down on a passing tray with deliberate care. Her hand was shaking, but she refused to hide it. David lowered his voice. "You're emotional." That was the worst thing he could have said. Eliza went cold all over. Across from her, Alex's expression changed too. Not surprise, recognition. Like he had just watched David become exactly who he expected. "Careful," Alex said softly. David ignored him. "I'm not trying to insult you. I'm saying maybe tonight isn't the best time for you to." "To what?" Eliza asked. "Speak?" He opened his mouth, closed it. She saw it then with painful clarity. Not just what he had done to her, but what he had always thought of her. Too intense, too inconvenient, too full of feeling. Fine to love in private, not ideal for the life he wanted displayed in public. And just like that, something inside her stopped begging to be chosen. Lauren stepped in at last, voice strained. "Maybe everyone needs a minute." Alex looked at Eliza again, and his tone changed completely when he spoke to her. "Do you want to stay?" Quote. The question stunned her. Not "should you leave?" Not "wouldn't it be easier?" Not "let's avoid a problem, do you want to stay?" No one had asked her what she wanted in a very long time. Eliza looked past him at the gold lights hanging over the lawn, the linen tables, the polished guests pretending not to stare. She looked at David in his perfect tuxedo, and Lauren in her perfect dress, and the perfect future she had once thought would be hers. Then she looked at Alex. At the brother David never understood, the one standing beside her without flinching. "Yes," she said. David stared at her. "You cannot be serious." Eliza held his gaze. "That's funny. I was just thinking the same thing about you." Alex's mouth moved, like he was fighting a smile, but his eyes stayed hard on his brother. David took one step closer. "If you stay, don't make this into something ugly." Eliza felt the whole night tilt. Alex moved half a step forward, subtle but unmistakable. "She won't," he said. "The question is whether you will." Quote. And as the silence deepened and the guests leaned in without seeming to move at all, Eliza realized this wedding was no longer under David's control. Not anymore. For a few seconds after Alex spoke, nobody moved. The wedding reception hung in that strange quiet where hundreds of people pretended nothing unusual was happening while watching every second. David's jaw tightened. "You're making a scene," he said. Alex gave a small shrug. "You started it." Lauren stepped between them quickly, her voice low but tense. "David, please." She turned to Eliza then. For a moment, the two women simply looked at each other. 3 months ago, Lauren had been Eliza's roommate. 3 months ago, they had still shared coffee in the mornings and complained about work and watched terrible movies on the couch. 3 months ago, Eliza had still believed Lauren was her friend. Now Lauren stood in a white wedding dress beside the man who had once promised Eliza forever. "I didn't expect tonight to turn into this," Lauren said quietly. Eliza almost laughed. "That makes 2 of us." Quote, David ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, already looking irritated with the situation. "Everyone is staring," he muttered. "They were staring before," Alex replied calmly. "You just didn't notice." David ignored him and focused on Eliza again. "I invited you because I thought we could be adults about this." "We are," Eliza said. His eyes flicked toward Alex. "No," David corrected. "You're turning it into a spectacle." Alex leaned slightly against the bar beside them, completely relaxed. "You keep using that word like other people are responsible for what comes out of your mouth." A few guests nearby tried to pretend they were deeply interested in their drinks. David exhaled slowly through his nose. "This is my wedding." "Yes," Alex said. "We're all aware." "And you're embarrassing me." Alex tilted his head. "You did that yourself." For a moment, David looked like he might actually lose his temper. Then he remembered where he was. The groom straightened his jacket, smoothing the front like he was resetting the image he wanted everyone to see. "Fine," he said finally. He looked directly at Eliza. "If you want to stay, stay." His voice turned colder. "But don't expect me to entertain this." Eliza felt something inside her shift. 3 months ago, that tone would have crushed her. 3 months ago, she would have apologized. Tonight she was just tired. "I didn't come here to be entertained," she said quietly. David held her gaze for another second. Then he turned away. Lauren followed him, glancing back once with an expression Eliza couldn't quite read. The band slowly started playing again. The crowd exhaled. Conversation returned in cautious waves. The spectacle was over, or at least paused. Eliza stood very still. Her heart was still racing. Her hands were cold. And suddenly the adrenaline began to drain out of her body all at once. "That went well," Alex said lightly. She looked at him. "Is this the part where you pretend that was normal?" His mouth twitched. "No." "Good." For a second they simply stood there. Then Alex reached for 2 glasses of champagne from a passing tray and handed one to her. "Here," he said. She took it automatically. "Is this for courage?" "No," Alex replied. "This is because surviving my brother usually requires alcohol." Eliza laughed. It surprised both of them. The sound felt strange in her chest, like opening a window in a room that had been closed too long. "You're very calm about all this," she said. Alex took a sip of his drink. "I've had a lot of practice with David. You 2 really don't like each other." That's the polite version. Eliza studied him more carefully now. Up close, he looked nothing like David. David was polished, controlled, every movement calculated. Alex looked like someone who had stepped out of a completely different world. His suit fit well, but there was something about the way he wore it that made it clear he didn't care about appearances nearly as much as his brother did. "You weren't supposed to be here tonight, were you?" she asked. Alex shook his head. "I wasn't planning on it." "Then why are you here?" He glanced toward the dance floor where David and Lauren were greeting guests. "Family obligations," he said. "That sounds painful." "It usually is." She hesitated. "You stood up for me. Someone needed to. You didn't even know me." Alex turned toward her fully now. Those gray eyes were sharp and steady. "I knew enough." Eliza frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" He studied her for a moment before answering. "It means I watched you stand here for an hour pretending you were fine." Her stomach dropped. "You noticed that?" "Yes. I thought I was hiding it." "You were," Alex said, "just not very well." She looked down at her glass. "Great." "Don't worry," he added. "My brother didn't notice." "That doesn't surprise me." Alex leaned one elbow on the bar. I also noticed something else. Eliza looked back up. What? You didn't leave. That's not impressive, she said. Yes, it is. She frowned. Why? Most people run away from uncomfortable situations. Alex's voice softened slightly. You stayed. Eliza didn't know what to say to that. She had never thought of herself as brave. Mostly she felt like someone who endured things until they were over. But hearing him say it like that made something inside her shift again. Do you always analyze people this much? She asked. Only the interesting ones. Eliza raised an eyebrow. That was smooth. It wasn't meant to be. Sure. Alex smiled slightly. And for the first time since the confrontation, the tension in her chest eased. Across the lawn, David was watching them. Eliza felt it before she saw it. That familiar awareness of someone who used to know you too well. She followed the feeling and found his eyes. He was standing beside Lauren now, speaking with two older guests. But his attention was clearly somewhere else, specifically on Alex and her. Alex noticed too. Let him watch, he said quietly. Easy for you to say. Why? Because he didn't break your heart. Alex was silent for a moment. No, he said eventually. But he broke something else. She looked at him. What? Our family. The answer surprised her. Before she could ask anything else, the music changed. A slow song drifted across the lawn. Guests began moving toward the dance floor again. Eliza sighed. I should probably leave before this gets worse. Alex shook his head. Or what? He held out his hand. Dance with me. Eliza blinked. What? Dance? She stared at his outstretched hand. Are you serious? Yes. You realize whose wedding this is. I do. And your solution is to dance with the groom's ex-girlfriend in front of everyone? Alex nodded calmly. Correct. That sounds like a terrible idea. Probably. Your brother might kill you. He's been threatening that since we were teenagers. Eliza hesitated. The entire reception suddenly felt like it was waiting to see what she would do. You're enjoying this, she said. A little. Why? Because my brother hates losing control. And this? Quote. Alex glanced toward David. This is driving him crazy. She should absolutely refuse. She should go home. She should avoid making the situation worse. But Alex's hand was still there, steady, patient, waiting. And suddenly Eliza realized something. For the first time in months, she didn't feel small. She felt alive. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. Fine, she said. Alex smiled. And as he led her toward the center of the dance floor, toward the music, toward the guests, toward David's increasingly furious stare, Eliza had one sudden thought. Tonight wasn't over. Not even close. And something told her the real trouble was only beginning. The music slowed. Couples moved toward the dance floor in soft clusters, glasses in hand, polite laughter floating under the golden lights. But the moment Alex led Eliza into the center of the lawn, the energy shifted again. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Because it wasn't just any couple stepping onto the dance floor. It was the groom's ex-girlfriend and the groom's brother. Eliza could practically feel the whispers forming in the air. Alex stopped beneath the hanging lights and turned toward her. Still want to run? He asked quietly. Eliza looked around the reception. Guests pretending not to stare. Lauren across the lawn beside David, and David himself. Watching them like someone had just slapped him, Eliza lifted her chin. No! Alex nodded once. Then he placed one hand lightly at her waist and took her other hand in his. The band shifted smoothly into a slow melody. And they started to move. Alex was a good dancer. Not flashy, not showy, just confident. His movements were calm and steady, guiding her without forcing anything. Eliza realized after a few seconds that her heart was racing again. You're tense, Alex murmured. Of course I'm tense. Try breathing. Very funny. He gave a quiet chuckle. I'm serious. Eliza exhaled slowly. The music drifted across the lawn. The warm night air carried the scent of roses from the gardens, and gradually, her shoulders loosened. You're doing this on purpose, she said. Doing what? Trying to make this look normal. Alex shrugged slightly. If we act like it's normal, eventually people will believe it is. Eliza glanced over his shoulder. David was still watching. So this is psychological warfare? Alex smirked. You're catching on. Quote. Despite everything, she laughed again. It felt strange. She had come to this wedding expecting heartbreak. Instead, she was dancing in the middle of it with the one person David clearly didn't want near her. You enjoy irritating your brother, she said. Immensely. How long have you two been like this? Quote. Alex thought about it for a moment. About 20 years. That long? Give or take. Eliza studied him. You weren't joking earlier, were you? About what? When you said he broke your family. Alex's hand at her waist tightened slightly. For David, he said slowly, life has always been about control. What do you mean? He plans everything. Eliza nodded. That sounds familiar. Alex's expression darkened. When we were kids, he was the one who followed the rules. And you didn't? Not exactly. She smiled slightly. That doesn't surprise me. Alex continued. Our parents loved that about him. Good grades, perfect manners, the right friends, the right future. And you were the rebel. Apparently. Quote, but that's not why things fell apart. Eliza looked up. What happened then? Alex hesitated. Across the lawn, David had started moving toward them. Slowly, purposefully, Alex noticed. So, he said quietly, that conversation may be about to get interrupted. Eliza followed his gaze. David was coming. Lauren walked beside him now, her expression tight. Eliza, Alex said calmly, whatever happens next, don't apologize. I wasn't planning to. Good. David stopped beside the dance floor. The music kept playing. But the tension around them was loud enough to silence half the reception again. Eliza, David said. Alex didn't stop dancing. What do you want, David? Alex asked. I'm talking to her. Alex's voice stayed smooth. She's busy. David's eyes flashed. You think you're funny. No, Alex said. I think you're predictable. David ignored him and looked directly at Eliza. You're making this into something ugly. Eliza felt a flicker of anger rise again. You said that earlier. And it's still true. Quote, actually, Alex said lightly, it's still wrong. David turned toward him. Why are you doing this? Quote, Alex raised an eyebrow. Doing what? Humiliating me. Eliza almost choked on that. Humiliating you? She repeated. David gestured around the reception. You know exactly what this looks like. Yes, Alex said. It looks like I'm dancing. David stepped closer. With my ex. With a person, Alex corrected. Eliza felt the music slowing toward its end. The dance floor was almost empty now. Everyone nearby was pretending to listen to the band, while clearly listening to this conversation instead. David lowered his voice. You always do this. Do what? Undermine everything. Alex finally stopped dancing. The music faded. And for the first time, the brothers stood face to face without movement. What exactly am I undermining tonight? Alex asked. My wedding. Alex glanced around the reception. I didn't realize it was that fragile. David's voice dropped dangerously. You know what I mean. Yes, Alex said. I do. And you know why I don't care. Quote. David's jaw tightened. Lauren stepped forward slightly. David! But he ignored her. This is exactly why nobody trusts you, David said. Eliza saw the words land, not loudly, but sharply. Alex didn't move. What are you talking about? Eliza asked. David laughed quietly. You don't know? Alex's eyes hardened. Careful. But David wasn't interested in careful anymore. "You think my brother is some kind of hero because he defended you?" David said to Eliza. "You have no idea who he actually is." Eliza looked between them. "What does that mean?" Alex's voice was flat. "David." But David had already decided. Ask him about the last time he destroyed someone's life. The words hung in the air. Eliza felt confusion ripple through her. "What are you talking about?" David smiled coldly. "Ask him about Caroline." Alex went completely still. Eliza noticed immediately. "Who's Caroline?" David folded his arms. "His fiancée." Eliza blinked. "You were engaged?" Alex didn't answer. David continued. "Wedding planned. Families invited. Everything perfect." Quote. Eliza felt something uneasy twist in her stomach. "What happened?" David looked straight at her. "My brother left her." Silence. "He walked away 6 weeks before the wedding." David finished. "And he didn't just break her heart." David's voice sharpened. "He destroyed her reputation." Eliza stared at Alex. "Is that true?" For the first time that night, Alex looked uncertain, and suddenly Eliza realized something. The story she thought she understood was only the beginning. The silence after David's words felt heavier than the music had been. Around them, the reception continued in a strange half-motion. The band had started another song, but few people were dancing. Conversations had lowered to murmurs. Everyone nearby was pretending not to listen. Eliza looked at Alex. "You were engaged?" she asked quietly. Alex didn't look away from David. "Yes." The simple answer didn't calm anything. David gave a humorless smile. "See? That part is easy for him to admit." Alex's voice stayed even. "You've made your point." "I haven't even started," David replied. Lauren touched David's arm again. "This isn't the place." "It's exactly the place," David cut in, "since he decided to perform in front of everyone." Eliza felt her stomach twist. She didn't understand what was happening anymore. 5 minutes ago she had been dancing. Now she was standing in the middle of a family war she had never even known existed. "What happened with Caroline?" she asked. Alex's jaw tightened. "David wants to embarrass me," he said. "That's all." "That's not all," David said sharply. He looked at Eliza again, almost like he was warning her. "You think my brother is the noble one here, the honest one, the guy who rescues wounded women from bad situations." His voice turned colder. "But Alex has a habit of walking away when things get complicated." Alex finally looked at him. "You're enjoying this." "No," David said. "I'm correcting the story." Eliza felt frustration rising. "Someone just tell me what actually happened." Alex exhaled slowly. "I ended an engagement." "That's a nice way of putting it," David muttered. Alex ignored him. "Eliza," he said calmly, "Caroline and I were together for 4 years. We were engaged for 1. Everything looked good on paper." "On paper?" she repeated. "It made sense," Alex said. "Our families approved. Our lives fit together." "But?" Eliza asked. He hesitated, but it wasn't real. David laughed quietly. "That's your version." Alex's eyes flashed. "It's the truth." Eliza crossed her arms, trying to steady herself. "So you just left?" Quote, "Yes." 6 weeks before the wedding, David added. A few nearby guests shifted uncomfortably. Eliza looked back at Alex. "Why?" Alex didn't answer immediately. The lights above the lawn flickered gently in the evening breeze. Somewhere behind them a champagne bottle popped, and a few guests laughed too loudly, trying to break the tension. Finally, Alex said, "Because I realized I was lying to her." Eliza frowned. "About what?" "About loving her the way she deserved." The honesty in his voice surprised her. "You broke her heart," David said flatly. "Yes," Alex replied, "and you embarrassed both families." "Yes." Quote, "And you left her alone to deal with the fallout." Alex's voice stayed quiet. "Yes." The admissions landed one after another like stones. Eliza didn't know what to say. She hadn't expected denial. But hearing him agree so easily made the story feel heavier, not lighter. David spread his hands slightly. "See?" Lauren looked miserable now. "David, please stop." But David was staring at Eliza. You should know who you're dealing with. Alex's patience finally cracked. Enough. The word cut through the music. For a moment, even the nearby conversation stopped again. David smirked slightly. Why? Because the truth makes you uncomfortable? Alex stepped closer. No. Because you're twisting it. Oh, am I? Yes. Eliza stepped between them before the distance disappeared completely. Stop, she said. Both men looked at her. Her heart was pounding again, but this time it wasn't humiliation. It was something else. Frustration. David, she said, what exactly are you trying to accomplish right now? David blinked. I'm trying to protect you. Quote. Eliza almost laughed again. Protect me? Yes. From dancing? From him. She shook her head slowly. You left me. I know. You married my friend. Yes. And now you're worried about protecting me from someone else? Quote. David's jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. Then explain it better. He hesitated. And for the first time since the confrontation started, he looked unsure. Alex noticed too. You're not protecting anyone, Alex said quietly. You're angry. David's eyes snapped back to him. About what? That she moved on faster than you expected. That's ridiculous. Is it? Quote. David didn't answer. Eliza watched them both, two brothers standing under wedding lights, arguing over truths neither of them wanted to say out loud. You think this is about jealousy? David scoffed. Alex shrugged. I think you hate losing control of the narrative. David laughed once. You always did love your dramatic theories. No, Alex said. I just know you. For a moment, the brothers simply stared at each other, years of history moving silently between them. Then David looked back at Eliza. Ask him one more thing. Alex sighed. We're done. No, David said. We're not. Eliza felt dread creeping up again. What now? David's smile returned, thin and sharp. Ask him why Caroline's family sued him. The words dropped like a bomb. Eliza blinked. They what? Alex closed his eyes briefly. David. You're leaving out the best part, David continued calmly. Eliza deserves the full story. She looked at Alex again. Is that true? He opened his eyes. Yes. Eliza felt the ground shift under her. You were sued? For breach of contract, Alex said. Her confusion deepened. Marriage is a contract. Yes. And you breaking the engagement triggered a very expensive legal fight. David nodded toward his brother. See? He tells the truth when he has to. Eliza stared at Alex. How expensive? Alex didn't answer. David did. $500,000. The number hung in the air like a thunderclap. Guests nearby stopped pretending not to listen. Eliza felt dizzy. You paid that? Yes. Why? Alex's voice was quiet but steady. Because walking away was still the right thing to do. David shook his head slowly. You see what I mean now? Eliza looked between them. Her heart was racing again, but not from fear, from realization. The story David was trying to use as a weapon wasn't making Alex look weak. If anything, it was revealing something else entirely. And as she stared at him under the golden lights, one thought formed slowly in her mind. David might have just made a mistake. A very big one. For a moment, no one spoke. The number still hung in the air. $500,000. Guests around the lawn had stopped pretending not to listen. Champagne glasses hovered halfway to lips. A few people exchanged quiet looks, the way people do when gossip suddenly becomes something much more serious. Eliza looked at Alex. You paid them? She asked softly. Yes. $500,000. Yes. Just to walk away. Alex's voice remained calm. Yes. David gave a sharp laugh. See? That's the part he never likes explaining. Quote, Eliza turned toward David slowly. No, she said. I think I understand it. David blinked. You do? Yes. She looked back at Alex. You realized you were marrying someone you didn't actually love. Alex nodded once. And instead of pretending for the rest of your life, you ended it. Yes. David scoffed. You're missing the point. Eliza shook her head. No, I think you are. The groom's expression tightened. Eliza, you keep telling this story like it proves something terrible about him. She gestured toward Alex. But all I'm hearing is that he refused to lie. David stared at her. That's your interpretation? Yes. It's a convenient one. It's the honest one. David opened his mouth again, then stopped. Because the more he tried to frame the story as a scandal, the more obvious something else became. Alex hadn't cheated. He hadn't disappeared. He hadn't betrayed Caroline. He had simply told the truth too late, maybe, but still before the wedding. And he had paid for the damage himself. Eliza looked at Alex again. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Alex gave a small shrug. Because it wasn't relevant. David laughed again. Not relevant? You nearly destroyed 2 families. Alex's voice sharpened slightly. No, I refuse to build a marriage on a lie. And you think that makes you noble? No, Alex said quietly. I think it makes me honest. Eliza felt something shift in her chest. 3 months ago, she had spent countless nights replaying her breakup with David. Wondering what she had done wrong. Wondering if she should have been quieter, easier, less complicated. David had chosen Lauren because she fit better, because she made life smoother, because she didn't challenge his plans. But Alex had walked away from a perfect future because it wasn't real. The difference hit her like a sudden flash of light. David saw it too. You admire that? He asked. Eliza met his eyes. Yes. He looked genuinely stunned. That's insane. No, she said calmly. What's insane is marrying someone you don't actually love. David's face darkened. That's not what happened. Quote, isn't it? Quote. He gestured toward Lauren. I love my wife. Lauren flinched slightly at the intensity in his voice. Eliza noticed. But she didn't push it. Instead, she said quietly, then I'm glad you figured that out before marrying me. The words landed harder than anything else she had said all night. David's expression flickered. For the first time since the confrontation started, he didn't have an immediate answer. Alex watched the exchange silently. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Not mocking, just satisfied. Eliza turned back toward him. Why did you really defend me earlier? Alex looked slightly surprised. I already told you. You said someone needed to. Yes. That's not the real answer. He studied her for a moment. The music had faded again. The band clearly had no idea what to play during a family argument in the middle of a wedding. Finally, Alex said quietly, because I know what it feels like to stand in a room full of people and realize the person beside you doesn't actually see you. Eliza felt the words land somewhere deep. That's specific. Yes. David rolled his eyes. This is unbelievable. No, Alex said. What's unbelievable is that you invited her here. David snapped his head toward him. What? You asked her to come to this wedding. Yes. You asked her to watch you marry someone else. David's jaw clenched. That was closure. No, Alex said. That was cruelty. Lauren finally spoke again, her voice shaking. Can we please stop doing this? Quote. Everyone looked at her. She took a slow breath. This isn't helping anyone. For a moment, the entire lawn felt painfully quiet. Lauren looked at Eliza. I didn't want tonight to hurt you. Eliza studied her old friend. Maybe Lauren believed that. Maybe she didn't. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. It doesn't, Eliza said gently. Lauren looked confused. What? It doesn't hurt anymore. David stared at her. That's convenient. Eliza smiled faintly. It's freeing. David's irritation flared again. So you just move on? That fast? She tilted her head. You got married tonight. That's different. Why? Quote, because I was honest about it. Eliza's eyes sharpened. Were you? David hesitated, only for a second. But Alex noticed. Eliza noticed. Lauren noticed. The pause was small, but it cracked the perfect image David had been trying to maintain all evening. Alex folded his arms. That's interesting. David glared at him. Don't. Don't what? Start another fight. Alex shrugged. You're the one who brought up honesty. David's voice dropped dangerously low. You always do this. Do what? Make everything messy. Alex smiled slightly. No. He glanced at Eliza. I just stopped pretending it's perfect. The words hung between them. Eliza suddenly realized something important. David wasn't angry because she had danced with Alex. He wasn't angry because people were gossiping. He was angry because Alex had ruined the story. The neat version of events, the clean narrative where David was the responsible groom and Eliza was the emotional ex. Alex had flipped it, and now everyone could see the cracks. David noticed the shift too. He looked around the reception, guests whispering, eyes watching. The perfect wedding night suddenly felt less perfect. His voice hardened. This is ridiculous. He straightened his jacket again. I'm done with this conversation. Alex nodded. Good idea. David turned to leave, but before he walked away, he looked back at Eliza one last time. You're making a mistake. Eliza didn't even hesitate. No, she said quietly. I already made that mistake once. David froze. And across the lawn, a few guests actually gasped. Because in that moment, the power had completely shifted, and David knew it. For a moment after Eliza spoke, the entire reception felt suspended in air. The words echoed quietly under the golden lights. I already made that mistake once. David stood there, frozen. Across the lawn, a few guests shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the bar muttered something under their breath. The band had stopped again without realizing it. Lauren looked from Eliza to David slowly. You should go talk to your guests, she said gently. David didn't move. His eyes were still on Eliza. You're serious, he said. Eliza met his gaze calmly. Yes. 3 months ago, that moment would have broken her. 3 months ago, standing under the lights of David's wedding while he looked at her like that, would have shattered something inside her. But now she felt strangely steady. David's voice dropped. You think this ends well? Eliza tilted her head. I think it already did. David scoffed. You just met him. True. And you're standing here acting like this is some kind of victory. It's not a victory, she said quietly. Then what is it? Quote. Eliza glanced at Alex. He hadn't moved. He wasn't trying to speak for her. He wasn't rushing to rescue the moment. He was simply standing beside her, present, steady. The difference struck her harder than anything else that night. It's clarity, she said. David frowned. What does that mean? It means tonight showed me something I should have seen a long time ago. And what exactly is that? Eliza took a slow breath. It's not about Alex. Both brothers looked at her. It's about the difference between you two. David's expression hardened. Oh, really? Yes. She gestured lightly toward Alex. He walked away from a wedding because it would have been dishonest. Then she looked back at David. You invited someone you once loved to watch you marry someone else, and then blamed her for being emotional about it. David's mouth tightened. That's not what happened. It is, she said calmly, and the fact that you can't see it is exactly why we didn't work. The words were quiet, but they landed harder than anything else she had said all night. For a moment, David didn't respond. Then he laughed softly. Fine. He straightened his jacket again. If that's the story you want to tell yourself. Eliza shook her head. It's not a story. What is it then? The truth. The two brothers stood facing each other under the soft lights. Years of resentment and competition simmered silently between them. Finally, David exhaled sharply. You always did love dramatic exits, he said to Alex. Alex shrugged. You always did love pretending things were perfect. David shook his head once. You'll regret this. Alex didn't react. Instead, he said calmly, Congratulations on the wedding. The sincerity in his voice made David blink. Then David turned and walked away. Lauren followed a moment later, pausing only long enough to glance back at Eliza. Her expression held something complicated. Regret, maybe. Or relief. Then she disappeared into the crowd beside her new husband. The tension slowly dissolved across the lawn. Guests began speaking again. The band hesitantly started another song, and the wedding reception returned to life. But something had changed. The story of the night had changed, and everyone there knew it. Eliza let out a long breath. "Well," she said quietly, "that was intense." Alex chuckled softly. "That's one way to describe it." She looked at him. "You didn't have to do that." "Do what?" "Step in earlier." "I wanted to." "That's different." "Not for me." Eliza studied him carefully. "You're aware that people are absolutely going to talk about this." Quote. Alex nodded. "Yes." "You don't seem worried." "I'm not." "Why?" Alex took a sip of the champagne he had somehow kept through the entire confrontation. "Because gossip usually fades." "And what doesn't?" "Character?" Eliza smiled faintly. That sounded like something from a philosophy book. "It came from my grandfather." "Wise man?" "Very." They stood there for a moment, the music drifting around them again. Then Alex looked at her. "Are you okay?" The question was simple, but it landed differently now. Earlier that night she would have answered automatically, "I'm fine." Now she actually thought about it. About the confrontation. About David. About everything that had led her here. And she realized something surprising. "Yes," she said. "I think I am." Alex nodded. "Good." Eliza hesitated. Then she asked, "Why did you really ask me to dance?" Alex smiled slightly. "You look like someone who needed an ally." "That's it?" Quote. "That's where it started." "And now?" He met her eyes. "Now I think it might have been the best decision I made all week." Quote. Eliza laughed softly. "You're very confident." "No," he said, "just observant." She raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly have you observed?" Alex tilted his head thoughtfully. "That you're stronger than you think." "That's a generous interpretation." "It's an accurate one." Eliza glanced across the reception. David was greeting guests again, smiling for photographs. But every so often, his eyes flicked toward them. Alex noticed. "He's still watching," he said. Eliza followed his gaze. Then she surprised herself by shrugging. "For the first time tonight." "I don't care." Alex smiled. "That's progress." She turned back to him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not letting me feel invisible." Alex shook his head. "You were never invisible." Eliza tilted her head. "Funny." "What?" "That's exactly how I felt before tonight." Alex looked at her for a moment. Then he said quietly, "The biggest mistake powerful people make is assuming the quiet ones in the room don't matter." Eliza felt a slow smile spread across her face. "That sounds like something worth remembering." "It is." The music swelled again as more guests returned to the dance floor. Alex held out his hand. "Careful," she said. "You ask me to dance again and people might start talking." Alex grinned. "They already are." Eliza considered the room, the whispers, the glances, David's distant stare, and then she placed her hand in Alex's. "Then I suppose we shouldn't disappoint them." He led her back toward the dance floor, and this time, she didn't feel like the girl who had come to watch someone else's future begin. She felt like someone who had just taken her own back, because sometimes justice doesn't come with revenge. Sometimes it arrives quietly. The moment you realize the person who broke your heart never deserved that power in the first place. And the biggest mistake a man like David can make is believing the woman he underestimated will stay small forever.